Alright, hi, this is Mr. Giles with a Paint.net tutorial, and what we're going to make today is a scale. We've been talking about balancing our media lives. Is your life kind of out of balance? And so we're going to demonstrate that making a scale. I looked at a picture of a scale, and here's some samples. Here's a scale that I sort of looked at to base my scale on. I'm going to do a better job, but I'm going to show you how I got from nothing to this, especially if you're new to Paint.net. And we're going to learn some things with the shape tool. So we're going to start with a new one. I'm going to go File, New. And the first thing I do when I go File, New is I'm going to set the size. I'm going to uncheck this check mark, and I'm going to set the size that I want. For this example, I actually want to go with a wider width. So I'm going to go 1920 by 1080, which is a classic widescreen dimension. Now it feels like the screen is too big. I'm going to go down to the bottom of my screen. If you can see down here, and there's a little button. This is your zoom, and it lets you zoom in and out. You should have a layers window, which can be turned on and off here, a color window, which can be here, and a tools window. And if you don't have it, come up here and turn them on. And if you ever lose them, you can turn them back on. Okay, so to get started, I want to make sure that everything is in the right space. I'm just going to create a new layer by clicking the plus button. If you hover your mouse over this, it should, oh, it doesn't say it, oh well. There's a shortcut for layers, and add new layers, Control-Shift-N. So you can also use the shortcut Control-Shift-N. We're going to make a new layer, and I'm going to call this scale. So I have a white background that I can turn on and off. I have my scale layer, but right now you don't see anything. I'm going to click on it. So I'm on my scale layer. Now I'm going to draw my scale. If you look here, you have all these different tools, and we're going to mostly be using the shape tool and the line tool and the fill tool. So today I'm going to get the shape tool, and I'm going to go to the size here. I'm going to set it to, like, I don't know, 4 or 5. That's going to set the thickness of my outer edges. So, like, for example, if I set my draw shape to be just an outline, it'll be like this. Now this program is different than some. Some programs you draw something, and then when you're done, you can go back to it, click on it again, like with the arrow key, and sort of move it. But I'm actually moving the entire layer, and I'm not able to, like, just resize that shape. So you're like painting it onto the screen. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to get my shape, and I'm going to start with, I'm going to take a look at my sample here, and it's got a base with 2 circles. So I'm going to get the oval tool here. I'm going to go to the shapes. I'm going to go to ellipse, and I'm going to make sure I have this draw shape outline, and I'm going to draw a base right here. And there's my base. And then I'm going to draw a second circle. So I'm going to hit enter. When you hit enter, it commits your drawing. Then I'm going to draw another shape like this, and I'm going to shrink it down so it's kind of, actually looks kind of cool like that. You can sort of play with this. I'm making it so it's like a rounded base, so it gives it a little bit of a 3D shape. So you can make yours like mine and hit enter. Now we are painting these things on. That means they're in there, and we cannot change it. We can hit Control Z, Control and the Z key, Z as in zebra. But I'm going to continue making my shape. So let's go back and look at the example picture here. In fact, I'm going to right click and copy this image. Right click and copy image. That's your right mouse button. And then I'm going to go and make a new layer. I'm going to put sample picture. I'm going to name it by double clicking on the layer. And I'm going to go Control V to paste. Now there's my sample picture, and I can turn it on and off. And by the way, this is important. You want to make sure that you don't draw on the sample picture layer. So you got to make sure that whatever you want to draw on, you're on that layer. Also, there's this thing called marching ants. These are the little dots. To get rid of the marching ants, you hit Control D, which stands for deselect. Control D. The CTRL in the bottom left and right of your keyboard, and the letter D as in dog. So I'm going to deselect, and I'm going to make sure I'm on the scale layer, and I can see this now. This is sort of like a rounded triangle thing. So I'm going to turn the picture off, make sure I'm on the scale layer. I'm going to go to my shapes, and actually there's a shape right here that looks pretty close to what I want it to be. So I'm going to take that shape, trapezoid, and I'm going to just draw a trapezoid here. That looks pretty good, and I can make the other part of that. I'm gonna just get it so it's as centered as I can make it right now. And then I'm gonna hit the enter key. I'm gonna make that go most of the way up. Okay, so there's I'm looking at my scale. I'm gonna put a rounded tip up here. So I'm gonna go to the trapezoid shape. And I've got black selected. I'm gonna go to circle. And I'm gonna go to filled shape. And what that does is it will fill the shape with the color you have selected. So I'm gonna go to fill shape, and I'm gonna just draw it like this. I probably could have done a filled shape. I'm gonna just make sure I'm centering it. By the way, look at my hands. I'm gonna take my hands off my mouse. I'm gonna use the arrow keys to get kind of an exact position. If I wanna be really precise, you can use the arrow keys to move your shape. Then I'm gonna hit the enter key, okay? Then I can fill this with black by using the paint bucket tool, and that gets sort of a lot of that filled. That looks pretty good. I'm gonna come back to these things later. That has my center part of my scale. Remember that when we go to this layer to turn it on and off, we wanna make sure that we go back to our scale layer. You can also just open Google in another tab and switch back and forth if you wanna do that. Okay, so I've got my basic shape. I wanna make my line across the top. All right, let's get to the line tool, which is right here above the shape tool. Now, I'm gonna make this a little bit thicker. I'm gonna go maybe a 10. Let's see how that looks. I'm gonna hold the shift key down. When you hold down the shift key, it makes a perfectly locked in line like that. See, it locks in at different angles. And in fact, if you really care about the angles and stuff like that, if you look down here, it even says angle -15. Press enter to finish or draw elsewhere for a new line or curve. I'm gonna hit Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. I'm gonna try that again. I'm gonna hold Shift. I'm gonna be about right here. I'm gonna go all the way to the same spot on the other side. I'm gonna try to be roughly, I'm gonna just eyeball this design and try to make sure that, like, see that you have two dots in the middle, these two dots right here and here. That's how I can sort of center this on my, this ball right at the top. Sorry, I have students in the class and they don't know that I'm making a video. So now I've got my crossbar and I want to take a look at the sample picture again. Okay, now I see that there are two rings at the end. So I'm gonna, actually, I want to shorten this. The reason I want to shorten this is the hanging spot. I'm gonna just delete, like, I'm gonna make a selection. I'm gonna do that over here. I'm gonna just, I want it to be a little bit shorter. And the reason I want it to be shorter, I want space for the triangle to hang. There's gonna be a triangle, right? It's gonna hang with a tray down here. And I want it to be very similar in size. So I'm trying my best to make that. I think that's pretty close. It's not gonna be perfect, it's okay. All right, back to the line tool. Let's take a look at our picture. It has like a basket. You can do the basket if you want. I'm gonna make it simple and just make a line. Okay, I'm just gonna make a line. So I'm gonna turn that off, reselect my scale layer, and I'm gonna draw a line, which is not happening. Control Z, nope, hold on. I'm gonna hit Control D again, just in case it's not working. Make sure I've got black selected. I have the line tool. I'm gonna hold down the shift key. There we go. Now, this is on the scale layer. I wanna get an exact copy of this line, like exactly the same size. Now I can look down here and it says length 641. So I could just draw another one that is 641, or once I have it positioned, I'm gonna put it right about here. I'm gonna try to center it right here. See these two dots? I want the two dots to be centered on the end of this line. That's gonna give it that look like it's like hanging perfectly balanced. And I'm gonna use my arrow key and push down. And it's a little bit slower, but when you use the arrow key, it stays perfectly lined up with where you had it. So I'm gonna just slowly lower it down. I want a lot of space in the middle of my screen so that I can put pictures of things there. Okay, we're gonna be adding things to our thing. Okay, now that I've got it perfectly the right size, I'm gonna highlight just this area with the selection tool. Make sure that you're on the scale layer and press Control C. Control C as in cat. Wait, is that C? C. Okay, I copied it. Now I'm gonna go and I'm gonna just click with the blue arrow. I'm gonna click over here, hit Control D, and I'm gonna hit Control V to paste. Now I just pasted it right on top of where it was, and now I'm gonna use my arrow keys. Actually, I'm gonna grab it, and you can see that there's like, I grabbed the whole area around it, the white area too. So I'm gonna try and get this lined up See the little middle dot? That's actually really helpful. I'm going to make sure that it sort of, I'm using the arrows. I'm clicking and letting go so I can see them. I'm going to line up that dot exactly with the end of this thing. Now I'm going to go down. And I'm just going to eyeball it, but I'm going to hopefully it's going to get it very close to the other shape here. We really have most of our design done. Like, I'm going to do a lot of tweaking with colors and things to make it like a way that I really like it. But I'm going to look, I'm just looking at this to see if it's like roughly, for those of you that have any kind of OCD or whatever, you can line this up as tight as you want and maybe draw another line on another layer to make sure that these two lines are aligned. Here, I'll show you how you can do that. Okay, so like here, I'm going to draw like a green line on a new layer. I'm going to get rid of this in a minute. I'm going to draw a line right through here like this. See that is actually really, those are very close together. You can see that maybe the line on the right is like slightly lower. If I zoom in a little bit, I'm fine with that. I'm going to click on this layer and delete it. I don't need that layer anymore. My lines are good. My lines are good. I'm going to zoom back out using the zoom tool. And now I'm going to look at my picture again. Okay, scale has little circles at the top. I think that's pretty easy to do. So I'm going to go back to my shape tool and I'm going to go to this circle and I'm going to hold shift down while I make this. Oops, Control D. Anytime you have a problem, anything doesn't work in Paint.net, a lot of times it has to do with a selection. Also, I just realized, look what layer I'm on. I'm on the sample picture layer. That's why it wasn't working. So I'm going to go back to my scale layer. Make sure my scale layer is on. And now I'm going to hold shift, and there we go. Now it's making a green shape I don't like, so I'm going to click on this black and white thing here, and I'm going to go back to my line tool, and I'm going to make it a little thinner because this is supposed to be a wire. And I'm going to go to, shape tool. Let's go to not filled in. I'm going to draw an outline to make it look like a hook, and I'm holding shift. And when you hold shift, it makes a perfect circle. And then I'm going to move it, and there we go, enter. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And that's pretty close to what I want, so I'm going to stick it right there. I can use the arrow keys to kind of line up that dot. If I want to might get it perfectly centered, that's helpful. And then I hit the enter key. Boom. Now I'm going to just attach lines to be a chain, and I'm going to make these thinner and just really easy to see through. I'm going to make it like a size 3. I'm going to click right there and hold. I'm going to try holding shift. No, it doesn't work. I'm just going to drag it right to the end and let go. And I'm going to hit enter. And then I am now drawing this shape, and I'm taking it right down to this spot and dropping and letting go. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm drawing a line, and I'm putting it down, and I'm drawing another line. And my students are in my class, and they don't know that I'm making a video, so they're talking, but they're going to get really quiet and more whispery because I am recording a video. So now I've got my basic thing here. This'll work for what we're going to do. Final things, if you want to make circles here and get fancy, you can. If you want to fill in, I'm going to fill in with gray, like a light gray here, and then a darker gray on the next layer to make a darker gray. I have my gray selected right there. And then I'm going to go to more, and you can just change this right here to make the gray a little darker. And then I'm going to click here, and now you see I filled it with a darker gray to give it that look. And then we're going to be doing a whole other project, but now this is how you make the scale. So take your time, add details, look at other pictures of scales. If you just Google scales, like there's all kinds of different scales and like styles. You can make bendy lines. It gets more complicated. You can do rounded things if you understand that, and that's totally fine if you want to try something more complex. But that's how you make a scale using the shape tools and some layers in Paint.net. I'm going to turn my layers back on. I hope that is helpful, and I'm going to save this. This is the last thing that you should always do. File, save as, and I'm going to call this scale from video 2024, and I'm going to save it. It saves a paint.net file, and then if I want to use it for something else, I might save it as a PNG. And I might change it to PNG if I want to use it or turn it in as an image to share with my class or upload to a website. Okay, well, I hope you know more about how to use some of the tools in paint.net, and have a great day. Bye.